In the opening scenes of Homer's Iliad, the Greek fighter Achilles has decided to sort of sit out the war, not participate. And he has taken his troops, which are called the Myrmidons, with him. He's threatened, although he hasn't carried out the threat, to leave Troy and go back to Greece. But he hasn't done that. What he's doing is sulking on the shores of Troy, and basically spends his time sort of playing the lyre, and we'll meet Achilles a little bit later. In the opening scenes of the Iliad, once Achilles withdraws, he disappears from the narrative. There's a saying attributed, we find in the Iliad, Achilles absent was Achilles still. And so Achilles remains a kind of looming presence. But for many of the opening books of the Iliad, we will not see Achilles. Why? Because he's, you may say, away from the scene of the action. Now, Achilles' reason, and we've been talking about this, for refusing to fight, is that Agammemnon, the Greek king. Now, Agammemnon is not actually the king of Greece. There is no Greece. There are Greek kingdoms, and there are many kings. In fact, Achilles is a king, Odysseus is a king, and Agammemnon is a king. But he is the acknowledged leader of the Greek expedition. So in this respect, for this fight, he is in charge. So he does have the legitimate authority to do what he does. And what does he do? He takes away a concubine, Briseis, that was assigned to Achilles as part of his honor. I use the term time. And the question arises, why would Agamemnon do this? Why would he take the risk that his best fighter will become so angry that he will step away, and this will result in many Greeks being killed? Now, the reason that Agamemnon does this is because of an affront to his own time, to his own honor. In fact, there seems to be on the surface an almost parallel incident in which Agamemnon is deprived of his own concubine. He's like, all these concubines, what's really going on? Well, what it is that Agamemnon has a concubine named Chryseis. Now, Chryseis, Briseis, they sound very similar. And what makes all of this a little more complicated is that Chryseis has a father named Chryses. Now, Chryses is a priest in the temple of Apollo. Apollo is the god of healing, but he's also the god of plague and sickness. And Chryses, the father, comes to Agamemnon. This is actually the very opening scene of the Iliad. This is like page 1. And Chryses basically says, "Give me my daughter back, I beg you in the name of Apollo." And Agamemnon, a haughty, arrogant warlord, basically goes, "Are you joking? Nonsense. I'm not going to do that. Take a hike." And even though Chryses offers tribute and says that he will sort of pay a ransom, Agamemnon won't hear of it. This is, after all, part of his prestige as the leader of the Greek forces. He's not going to give the girl back. And so Chryses goes and prays in the temple of Apollo and calls on Apollo to teach the Greeks a lesson so that his daughter will be returned. And sure enough, Apollo sends plagues that begin to decimate the Greek armies. Greek soldiers are dropping, you may say, like flies. And Agamemnon is now in a panic, like, what can I do? He goes to his own prophet, a guy named Calchas, and he goes, "What should I do?" And Calchas goes, "Give the girl back." And so Agamemnon returns Chryseis to her father, Chryses, but he's furious. In fact, he feels like he has been insulted. And remember, this is a case where prizes are a measure of your worth. So Agamemnon's worth has been, you may say, diminished. And Agamemnon decides, I'll take it out on Achilles. I'll take his concubine. Now, the question may arise, why take it out on Achilles? Well, the answer in part is because Achilles and Agamemnon, first of all, don't get along all too well. Achilles has a rather contemptuous view of Agamemnon. Yeah, he acknowledges him as the leader, but he thinks he's also something of a coward and an opportunist. And he's not doing this really to get Helen back. He's got his own motives, which we'll talk about later. But Achilles had also urged Agamemnon from the beginning, give the girl back. And so Agamemnon thinks, well, listen, since you're the great advocate of returning the concubine, you know what? I will, but I'll take yours. So on the surface, it looks like Agamemnon and Achilles are facing identical deprivations. Achilles is deprived of Briseis, but hey, Agamemnon was deprived of Chryseis. And so perhaps Agamemnon, although this is a kind of raw exercise of power, is somewhat justified in taking Achilles' concubine. I want to argue in the next segment why this is not the case. Why, in my view, Agamemnon was wrong to do this. And moreover, Achilles is right, or at least right within the context of Homeric culture, to see this as a great affront and to step away from the battlefront.